for me, at this point, it doesn't really matter whether you're trans or cis or non-binary. Like, if I like you, I like you, and if you like me, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So I think love is just beautiful, and at some point, I guess bodies like come second, and like identities come second to that. Like it's just you love that person, and that's it.
Hello and welcome to the 50 Shades of Gender podcast. We get curious about all things gender, sex, and sexuality, as well as relationships, feminism, the inclusive kind, neurodivergence, disability, kink, mental health, and all that makes us humans unique and diverse. From body positivity to body dysmorphia, it's all welcome here. If you appreciate this podcast and want to support us, you can visit our website, 50shadesofgender.com, as in FIFTY, to make a donation, join our community, find out more about our gender diversity and allyship workshops and courses, and how to contribute your gender story to the Anthology of Hope, for which we are now accepting submissions. Visit 50shadesofgender.com/hope for more information. Now, join us on a journey of inclusion, acceptance, and respect. I'm your host, Esther Lemons. I am a queer woman, and my pronouns are she and they. In this episode, I have a conversation with Finn Evans, an artist, writer, film director, and owner of the production company Chudazzi. Finn's pronouns are he and him, and he is transmasculine and queer. He also uses the label trans man. Find out what that means to Finn in this episode. We also talk about challenges with gendered language, finding your people, what labels feel like home, intersectionality and discrimination, the importance of accurate media representation and celebrating genuine efforts at it, tackling misinformation, and letting people evolve. To clarify some terminology that is used in the episode, T for T is trans for trans. It was recorded on the 24th of January 2025. Now let's get into the episode. Hello and welcome. What's your name?
Hello, my name is Finn Evans. It's really nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being on the show. Like when I say the show, I don't know. I don't think I've ever said that, and it feels a bit when people say, "Oh, welcome to the show," it feels a bit wanky, but maybe that's just me. Welcome to the podcast in that case.
I don't mind whether it's a show
Yeah,
or a podcast.
yeah,
It's both ways. Nice to be here.
yeah. Good stuff. Yeah, so let's go straight into gender stuff. So the labels you gave me were transmasculine and queer, and we also talked about identifying versus being a trans
Mhm.
man. And I wanted to ask you, first of all, what is the nuance between these labels for you in your experience? Transmasculine versus trans man. Maybe when do you use either one?
Mm.
What is there for you? I'd love to know.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I guess for me, it shows that, like, depending on who I'm with or like where I present that information, I
Mhm.
guess it shows that I'm someone you can trust because I understand. So that's why I'm okay with having the label trans or like trans masculine in front, just to present and show that, like, hey, it's okay, I get it. And it's also because for me, it really shows who I am and my difference in experience from, like, let's say, a cis man, because that's an experience that I wouldn't be able to fully ever understand, just the way cis men or cis women wouldn't be able to fully understand my own.
Mm.
So I think in a way I find it helpful, and I'm quite happy with it. Like, it makes me feel like, oh, this is kind of the label of home in a way.
Oh, the
I don't know if
label of
that makes
home.
sense. Yeah, but
Yeah,
yeah.
that's really lovely. Yeah, I think we all have those labels that just
Mm,
feels like home to us in ways. Well, we all have. I think many people can relate to that
yeah.
term. I certainly can. I feel like it's not obviously gender related because
Mm,
I'm a cis woman, I suppose. Although I'm a bit
yeah.
like, what does that even mean? Anyway, that's another rabbit hole. But there
Oh,
are labels like neurodivergent that I discovered for myself that kind of feel like
yeah.
home and that also kind of feel challenging because they
Mm,
have Well, that must be something that you can obviously relate to. Like labels feel they're very multi-layered, aren't they? Because they can feel like
Exactly,
home and they can feel like, oh, I understand myself better now. But also, it then brings along a whole load of other challenges and other stuff.
exactly,
So,
exactly.
yeah, yeah. So, how did your journey unfold? Your journey
Mm.
of like your gender, embracing your identity, and the labels that you now use. If you'd like to share a bit about that, that'd be great.
Yeah, of course. I'm really happy to share my experience. It wasn't a straight one for sure. I mean, I didn't always know, and it actually like I started realizing that something, let's say, is off, like in quotation marks, maybe around puberty, so like 15, 16
Okay.
years old. And it wasn't until I found a YouTuber speaking about it that I didn't realize that like trans people exist, because I've grown up mainly in Bulgaria where the trans people almost like don't exist
Mm-hmm.
in the discourse of like the community like in Bulgaria.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously nowadays I know a lot of trans people in Bulgaria and like I've met my community, but at the time this just wasn't really spoken about anywhere. So for me, I didn't even know it existed as an option.
Yeah.
Let's just say that.
Mm-hmm.
So when I came across Luke Wales' YouTube channel, I went on a rabbit hole, and like then I watched all the other YouTube videos like Miles McKenna and like others that your followers might know. And I read a lot, and there was in the beginning a lot of uncertainty for me because some things I wouldn't entirely relate to, and some things like felt scary at the time, and like I felt like, oh, okay, but if I use he him pronouns, especially in Bulgarian, the language is very gendered, so
Oh
like that would
yeah.
mean me looking as like pretty, no passing at all, with
Yeah.
my high voice and everything, but like speaking in a way to express my gender, and I felt like that wouldn't really pass at all, and I was battling like feelings of, oh, like wouldn't that be me lying, and all of those, like I guess in a way maybe was internalized transphobia, but
Yeah.
was also really not understanding yet at the time, and like being very young and
Mm-hmm.
very confused and not knowing anyone that I could relate to or ask,
Yeah.
apart from like online, obviously
Wow.
YouTube. So it took me some time to get to terms with it and to understand. But luckily, when I graduated high school, I went to study in the UK at University of East Anglia in Norwich,
Mm-hmm.
and meeting more alike people and getting access to resources that would explain to me both in like let's say normal terms and both in academic terms. It
Mm.
really helped me in a way like blossom and understand and be accepted and try to experiment at the time with he him pronouns and with the name Finn, which obviously stuck years later now.
Yeah.
So it's a slow process, and I guess if I had to give an advice, I would say take your time. I don't think anyone is rushing you for anything. Be accepting of yourself and ask a lot of questions, Google a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and it will be fine. Eventually, you'll find where you're fitting in this puzzle world. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Amazing. So, would you say that the term transmasculine is something that you kind of tapped into? Was that your first label or was it queer as well? Like, how did that
Mm.
all unfold?
I guess at the beginning, I didn't really know the like different labels, and so I would use at the time just trans or transgender because I didn't really know at the time anything.
Yeah.
um, Regarding queer, that's actually very recent for me.
Ah,
because I like to joke I went through all the LGBT alphabet that there is.
yeah.
Because like at the beginning, before I realized I was trans, there was a moment where I thought I'm cis and straight, but then I realized I'm bi, and then I felt like, okay, maybe I actually like only girls, and then the moment I realized that was the moment it clicked for me that I'm also trans. So for me, I was
Oh,
battling not only like gender identity discoveries, but also sexuality and like where do I fit in. And this actually, I think, happens a lot, at least when I've discussed with other trans people. But the past couple of years, I've been in a very healthy and happy relationship where I feel really comfortable
mhm.
with my girlfriend, and I felt comfortable enough to realize that I guess I'm queer because as long as people see me as me, and obviously I see them as whoever they identify as, like for me at this point, it doesn't really matter whether you're trans or cis or non-binary. Like if I like you, I like you, and if you like me, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So I think love is just beautiful, and at some point, I guess bodies like come second, and like identities come second to that. Like it's just you love that person and that's it. I
Mhm.
hope that's like that makes sense. So
Yeah.
that's why I'm now identify as queer because I've just throughout the years I've fallen for different beautiful people and they've been all over the spectrum. So
Oh, I love that.
so yeah. But it took a while.
Yeah.
It's been years, so.
Yeah. Yeah, gosh. Yeah, it must be interesting as well. Like you said in Bulgaria, you were feeling a bit lost and you had no one to relate to initially.
Yeah.
What helped you find your people over there? Was it
Well,
just it became more and more known and there were more and more influencers? Like, it's amazing when you think about it. People on
mm,
YouTube just sharing about who they are and they like
yes.
the effect they have. They don't necessarily have to be
Mhm.
having thousands or hundreds of thousands of followers, but you
Yeah.
just stumble across things and just something clicks and you're like,
Mhm,
wow,
mhm.
so it makes such a
Exactly,
big difference. Yeah. Anyway.
exactly.
Yeah.
For me, well, it's really funny because the closest people I had during school time, they all ended up being somewhere on the queer or neurodivergent spectrum.
Uh-huh.
So we're still hanging out till this day.
Nice.
So I guess they were the first like in Bulgaria to know about me. And then slowly I kind of started telling more people and being more comfortable. But I guess it's also because I've been in the cosplay community for years, and the cosplay community is very open to people being colorful. Let's just say that. Um,
Colorful. I like that. Yeah.
so I slowly, obviously, started opening to people in the cosplay community that I find
Mhm.
close to me, and they also accepted me. And
Mhm.
I guess a lot of them are also queer, so that helps, I guess.
Mhm.
And later, me working in the film industry and like theater, film and theater is also very a creative and open-minded community.
Mhm.
So I guess thanks to this, both in Bulgaria and the UK, I found my people. I'm sure, obviously, like you don't need to be in the arts industry to find your people, but that's just my way of how
Mm.
things happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I guess in Bulgaria things like started becoming more popular, and I mean we do have Pride here as well, and we've been having Pride I think for more than 10 years, which is not
Okay.
a lot for like in comparison to other countries, but it's a lot for
It's
us.
there. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
there are a lot of organizations that are trying to help and just spread the word and inform people so misinformation is less. But unfortunately, just like with most countries nowadays, the right-wing parties aren't really helping with
Mhm.
misinformation and just
Yeah.
a couple of months ago they banned LGBT topics in schools,
Oh gosh.
um,
Mm.
which is ridiculous because like come on, it's 2025 really.
Right.
But
Mm.
unfortunately for some things it feels like we're going forward and then we're going
Yeah.
backwards. Because
Yeah.
in comparison, if we look at in particular to Bulgarian's history, we're one
Mhm.
of the first to legalize people being gay and not throwing them in prison. And then now we're walking backwards again because of like politics and
Mhm.
just spreading misinformation, which unfortunately is happening like in the US, in other places as well. But
Yeah.
it's disappointing, a
Mm.
little bit at least.
Yeah.
Not a lot, but I'm trying to minimize it.
Understatement. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh my god, yeah. In ways,
yeah,
we've got much more awareness and understanding and acceptance, but then when you see
mm,
what's going on in politics, it's just like,
yeah.
what is happening? What is actually happening? Anyway, yeah,
I'm trying
that's
to
where we're
like,
at.
yeah, yeah, I agree. Sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, no, you're
Uh,
right. Go for
for
it.
me, I guess I'm trying to remind myself that maybe because there is more acceptance, we are making them kind of be louder,
Mhm.
because like
Yes.
that's their community of like hate and misunderstanding and prejudice, I guess.
Mhm.
It feels smaller, so they're getting scared and they're trying to be bigger. That's what
Yeah.
at least I hope for, because like
Yeah.
I don't know, I believe in the good in people, and I believe
Mhm.
that if you explain things, most people would be like, oh, okay, and they would not care as much.
Mhm.
And it's just about using that fear and misinformation
Yeah.
against each other that is the problem.
Mhm.
Hence why I love what you're doing and me being
Thank
here
you.
trying to be a
Yeah.
small drop in the knowledge there.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I feel similarly to you, actually. They are scared. I think I've heard it might have been an Eckhart Tolle quote who said, "The old is already, the new is already here. The
Mm,
old is just making a lot of noise dying." And I
yeah,
thought, "Oh, I like that." And I think the issue is because they are so, I guess they're powerful in ways, that is true. They've got a lot of money behind them and
yeah,
they've got a big, so they're amplified. They're
mm,
amplified because of resources, but
mhm,
not because of numbers. I think they're
yeah,
made out to be, because sometimes people think, oh, those people are the loudest. They must be the most powerful, the most numerous, the most whatever. And
mhm,
I don't think that's true, especially in this case. This is just a very small number of people with a lot of resources behind them.
yeah,
But
yeah,
but the thing is, I think it's really coming to a head now, and I think it's good that things are coming to the light because things have been bubbling under the surface. This stuff has
yeah,
been going on for
mhm,
ages. It just wasn't seen, but now it's being seen, and only when it's
yes,
seen can people be. And I think it's about the individual as well. Like
mhm,
we have power ourselves, but we can feel
yes,
powerless looking at all the stuff. But it's like no matter what the powers that be say, you have a choice in every moment how you treat people, how
exactly,
how you deal with situations, whether you choose like love or fear. That's a choice we
mhm,
can all make, no matter
yeah,
what's going on around us in a way. Well, in most circumstances, not
yes,
always,
yes,
obviously. Yeah, and then we all need to be safe and we all want to be safe. But yeah, there's a lot of manipulation going on, but I think thankfully that's what I like to hope is that
mm,
people are waking up to it and
yeah,
they're thinking for themselves rather than letting themselves be brainwashed by nonsense. Anyway,
exactly.
I'll get off my soapbox now. But yeah, yeah, so that is my hope as well.
Yeah,
So,
fingers crossed, fingers crossed.
yeah, yeah, and I think sometimes it does get worse before it gets better, and that is
Yeah,
very unfortunate. But yeah, we can only do what we can do, right?
mhm, mhm,
And be there for
exactly.
people. Yeah, yeah.
Maybe it's
So
the storm before the rainbow.
yeah,
Gonna be fine.
exactly, exactly. Yeah, yeah, I like that. I like that. So your way of being an activist or an advocate or whatever I don't know what you call yourself in this way. So you make theater and plays and things like that with a
Mhm.
gender-based theme. Yeah, do you want to share a bit more about that? You've made a film called Real Boy. Was that last year or the year
Yeah, so
before?
it was in 2023. We
Okay.
perform it twice. It's actually a theater play, but we're
Yeah.
hoping to adapt it into a feature-length film at some point. Um,
Amazing. Yeah.
so Real Boy is like briefly inspired by Pinocchio and how he's a puppet on strings.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, I wanted to focus on like how it feels being puppeteered by other people's opinions,
Mm.
especially when you're a people pleaser and want to please everyone, but like it's
Yeah.
not really possible
Yeah.
unless you stand for yourself and like find your own truth. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like a story that tells you what not to do. Don't be like real boy, essentially. Don't be a people pleaser and stand for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But in the play, I basically portray through his mother and close friends and acquaintances, like different viewpoints of like gender identity and like how it affects him. It has a
Mm-hmm.
little bit of surrealism. There is like some really interesting things happening with like imagine like Jiminy Cricket, but like appearing as a dream monster and things
Wow.
like that.
Oh,
That
yeah, yeah. Amazing.
basically is trying to shaking him up.
Yeah.
The recording of like the play that was first performed at UEA at the drama studio
Mm-hmm.
is actually available on YouTube. So like if you want to go see it for free.
I'll put the
Um
link in on the page
yeah,
anyway.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, for people to go and see. So you're also working on an exciting new project. So before we get into that, I wanted to talk to you about the world that you're in
Mm.
and gender, diversity, all that stuff. I mean, why do you do what you do? What is the message you think is important to share?
Well, I think basically when I look back from the story you heard, I wouldn't be here happy as my own self if I didn't have access to certain knowledge or certain representation. So I'm kind of trying to give back through like film and theater and showing stories of like unheard minorities. I did that with Real Boy, and I'm doing that currently as a producer for a short film as well, called Fold, expected soon.
Hmm.
And I'm hoping to do it for many other stories outside of gender topics as well. Recently, we premiered a short film, Loathing, which is about Roma discrimination in Bulgaria,
Hmm.
but it's also like everywhere. Discrimination against other races happens a lot,
Yeah.
and I do my best essentially to find stories of other people, not only written by myself, that they want to say and be heard. And
Yeah.
through my production company, Chudati, I try to distribute it to film festivals that are international and basically their stories to see as much world as possible and educate essentially in one way or another.
Hmm.
Um, Not necessarily in a documentary style. Most of them aren't documentary style, but it's about connecting to the main character that you see and experiencing with them what they go through. Because
Yeah.
I feel like that's one of the most effective ways to understand someone's struggles if you go with their shoes. Um,
Mm.
that expression I butchered, but I forgot how to say it.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
but
That's all
yeah,
right. Yeah.
that's kind of what I'm trying to do,
Hmm.
and I
Hmm.
hope if you have a story, you can email us, message us on Instagram. We don't
Mm.
need to be entirely formal. Just have an idea, share it with us. If we
Amazing.
can help, we would.
Yeah. I love that. And also, I love the intersectionality there because there is a
Mm.
lot of marginalization. Like the more your identity is, or like the more other marginalized labels you have or apply to you, obviously the harder life is.
Yeah,
And yeah, like I love what you said about the intersection or like yeah, how Roma people are discriminated against. And it
yeah.
makes me wonder as well. I don't know if you learned anything making that project about, I mean, what if it's like for queer Roma people?
Mm.
and like how obviously you're not in that world, but I was just wondering like
Yes,
what
yes.
you learned. I would love to have a conversation with a queer Roma person on the podcast. So if anyone's listening feels called, then please get in touch. So also, yeah, like what did you learn, or what is your main takeaway from that making that project?
I guess in this case, I didn't meet queer Roma people, but I met obviously like the Roma actor and their parents, and I could see that like you know there is this side eye that some people would kind of show when we pass by towards them that I
Mm,
would see, which would really annoy me because like we're just walking. What
mm,
are you? Why? And I don't know. It was for me. It was a nice experience of an opportunity to learn a little bit more about their culture and to speak longer with a Roma person because at least in Bulgaria, they usually you can find them either at the bazaar selling different kind of food,
mhm,
working in different jobs or being way outside of the city center. So you wouldn't necessarily be able to speak to them. And
mhm,
I know that there is still a lot of like Roma discrimination in Bulgaria, and a lot of assumptions that
mhm,
they only would steal, they would lie, they would, all these
mm. Yeah,
unnecessarily assumptions,
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
as if Bulgarians wouldn't lie or steal or like anyone really.
Right.
Um, it shouldn't be the race that makes you
Yeah,
just assume this.
yeah.
So for me it was a nice opportunity, and like this month on the 17th we had our first premiere of the film in Bulgaria.
Oh
Because
wow.
like it first was portrayed in Romania and in London and in
Yeah.
Greece. So it finally we had a premiere in Bulgaria, which we organized, and I was able to meet external family members of Victor. That's his name, the actor's name,
Uh-huh.
and it was so lovely to hear them being excited and recording with their phones different scenes of the film and being very happy and wanting a second film, a continuation. Because like I don't know, it made me happy that they're happy and that they had this experience where they see their son or like their nephew, whoever, on the screen and
Mm.
being represented as
Yeah.
what they are, just a human with a
Yeah.
story.
Amazing.
Um, so
Yeah.
so yeah, that's what I'm hoping to for us to keep doing. And
Yeah.
yeah, it reminds me, like it reminded me not to give up myself, because like even if it's hard, it's worth it in the end. Yeah,
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. It must be very rewarding
yeah,
to,
yeah. I mean,
experience that.
for me, it's also like seeing all these people together and smiling and all of us being together in one place. Because like I really love hanging out with people. I think people are cool, and
Yeah.
I think I don't know. I want occasions like that to be more rather than different bad situations that happen.
Mhm.
Um, it
Mhm.
makes me happy that this event happened. So
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. That's beautiful. That's
yeah.
amazing. There is an organization that I'm involved with, the Human Library. I don't know if you've heard of the Human Library, and they have a Roma book,
Mm.
a Roma person as a book. And I've had not many conversations with them, but it's so interesting. I did meet them some years ago, and yeah, I think it's great work that they're doing as well. So
Oh, that's amazing.
yeah, yeah, so cool. Yeah, so your new project is gender related. So
Yes.
what is it about and why does it matter to you and why does it matter to the world?
Okay. So basically, I was connected via Trans on Screen with writer director Gabe, and I was invited to produce the short film Fault, which is a slice of life of two different people who are in a relationship, and one of them is just recovering from a top surgery. We follow how they live. with their transness and disabilities and basically their love. And I think it's very important because I haven't personally seen a lot of projects that represent both disability and like what happens after top surgery and the love
Mm.
between two people as honest as possible, essentially. So I
Mhm.
was really touched by the script, and I'm very excited to for it to become a thing. And
Mhm.
essentially today we're filming the teaser. This is, you guys are the first that would hear about that.
Woo!
And we're hoping with the teaser to crowdfund and be able to afford filming the whole film and see
Oh, great.
portrays.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it would be amazing if you could guys support us with that.
Yeah, I'll share the crowdfunder on the page, on the episode
Thank you.
page, so that's fine. Yeah, absolutely, I'll do that. Yeah, it's amazing. How do you feel, I guess, about representation of trans and gender diverse people in your line of work? So what do you see and what do you think needs to change in that area as well?
Yeah, I think for me, obviously, like media representation was my favorite subject at uni, and it
Mhm.
stuck with me. And now it's what I'm mainly doing and focusing on.
Mhm.
I think without us being portrayed certain stories, we wouldn't know they exist and we wouldn't be able to understand them.
Mhm.
And accurate representation is very, very important because any misrepresentation then hurts people in real life.
Mhm.
So basically, I see that we have a lot more representation than we used to, but there are also like plenty of countries and places that still don't have that. So personally, I'm hoping to help in places where it's not yet achieved. And I'm also kind of hopeful when people still try to do something, even if it's not the best. When it comes from a good place, I'm
Mm.
still thankful and hopeful because they've tried to do it. So I know that, for example, sometimes, I guess the most recent discussion was with Squid Game and the representation of the trans woman there
Oh, okay.
that was played by a cis actor. So this might
Mm.
be a bit controversial, but like
Oh, I like controversial. Go on.
but yeah, basically, I know that a lot of people were not happy with the fact that the cis actor was portrayed, which fully understand why, and I know it's important for trans
Mhm.
roles to be given to trans people. It's what we're doing with Fold, for
Mhm.
example, and
Yeah.
and not only, of course, we did that with Real Boy, and it's what it should be done. But again, I wouldn't know 100% because I don't live in Korea and I don't know the situation there the way the director does. But based on his words, they don't have access to trans actors yet there because they're
Interesting.
not given the opportunity. So what they try to do is
Oh.
at least give awareness and information through the show. And
Mm.
for me, I think it was done well. Again, I'm not a trans woman, so maybe I'm not the best person to speak about that. But it's a step forward, and I feel like
Mm.
I know that we want to be, all of us want to be there already where trans actors receive what they deserve.
Yeah.
But I also feel like if you come from a place where you don't have that first step to step
Mm.
on, you do what you can and you make it.
Yeah.
So there are steps to step on. So I feel like
Mm.
we need to be
Yeah.
more supportive of these tries if they're
Yeah.
genuine. Again, I would leave a note that I'm not 100% sure of the situation. I've not done
Of course. Yeah.
research. This is just my personal opinion.
Mhm.
Um, but I feel like first steps are important. And
Mhm. Yeah.
I'm happy that they're happening because it means progress is slowly happening and it's
Yeah.
better than no progress at all. So
That is
yeah,
true. Yeah.
that's that's an opinion I have in this case. It's different when it
Mm.
comes to the US, where there's a lot more access and understanding there.
Hmm.
Um, so there it's easier to achieve this. But like in Korea and like in Asia in general, I think people were still not knowledgeable or ready at all. So
Interesting. Yeah.
so yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Uh-huh. Yeah. That is an interesting one, isn't it? Because you find a lot of the time, if you're a person who's standing up for a particular, what is the word?
Minority maybe? Or
Yeah, like for a particular purpose,
yes.
in the world, or a particular mission, or whatever you want to call it, then it's almost like you're scrutinized in a whole, like in a very, very intense way in ways. And that's not wrong necessarily, but also I think a lot of people are quick to criticize,
Mm,
and sometimes that's justified. That's totally fair
yes.
enough. So it's
Yes.
just generally, but also, yeah, I think people should get some credit, I guess, for making an effort, especially one that comes from a good place. Yeah.
Yeah.
And learn as we go,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
also, like, we can only do what we can do. And I find, especially at the moment where I'm at with my podcast,
Mhm.
I'm not doing regular episodes like I used to. I just don't have the capacity for it at the moment.
Mhm.
And there might be people who are like, "Oh, I miss weekly episodes,"
Mhm.
and I
Mhm.
totally appreciate that. But telling me, for example, people saying to me, "Well, you're not doing enough. You're not making enough of an effort." Or, if someone said that to me, I'd be a bit like, "Well, hang on a minute." You know,
Mm,
it almost
exactly.
feels like it comes from, or that would come from an entitled place, and an ignorant place as well. Like, because we don't know the whole story. Often we
Yeah.
don't know the whole story, and we all jump to conclusions, and I think that is part of the reason why, the situation in the world is what it is, and
Mhm.
why politics is what it is. And I feel like that is now changing and transmuting and dissolving in
Mhm.
positive ways eventually. And I hope
Exactly.
soon, because, you know, it really shouldn't get any worse. Good grief. But
I hope
yeah.
not.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? There's loads of nuance there, I think, and it's hard to know, like, even right or wrong, and what we think about people and the opinions we have, because we're never gonna know all the facts or all the information. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's always biased and it's always subjective. So, and we look at things through our own lens, obviously, as well.
Mhm. Mhm. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Again, I don't know enough. I've not lived in Korea, or I don't know
Yeah.
their situation as well as
Yeah.
other people might.
Yeah.
But I feel like, I don't know, for me it was a happy event that there was a trans character in
Yeah.
the second season.
Mhm.
And I didn't feel like it was anything malicious was portrayed in any
Mhm.
way. If
Yeah.
anything, especially, like, I don't know if you've seen it, but like
I
especially
haven't,
the
no.
it's a good show. It's a bit scary at times,
It's
obviously.
it's full on and intense. I don't know if
Yeah,
it's my thing, but yeah, I've heard things about it though. Yeah.
yeah.
Go on.
It's a good commentary on like what capitalism does to us. If you
Mm.
ignore the gore, it's a
Yeah.
really good show, smart show in its writing.
Ah, good.
Um,
Oh, it's good to hear, like, an observation from someone who's watched it. So yeah. Yeah. Nice.
um,
Yeah.
but yeah, there was this really sweet moment between an old grandma that like at first she's confused by seeing her, and she's like, oh, but like, how come you're dressed like this? How come you present like this? And then
Mhm.
they have a heart-to-heart conversation later in the season where she explains, and like the grandma understands. And I think,
Mm.
it's a beautiful portrayal of how being old doesn't excuse you from learning. And
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
and like
Yeah.
age shouldn't matter, and just because you've grown in a certain age it doesn't matter, because like trans and non-binary people have existed for centuries anyway.
Yeah.
So it's just the lack of information that
Mhm.
blinded some generations from knowing things. But
Mhm.
like we have the internet now and we don't have an excuse
Yeah,
to
it's
not
true
try
really,
and
isn't it?
read.
Yeah.
Of course,
Yeah.
if you have access to it and are able to, because
That is true.
uh,
Yeah,
that
that
is
is a thing.
also
Yeah.
part.
Yeah,
But yeah,
absolutely.
that's why I wanted to share this particular example because I felt like
Mhm.
it was a bit unfair on it because it wasn't a bad representation in my opinion.
Mhm.
If it was a bad misrepresentation and on top of it there was a cis guy playing a trans woman, then that would change my opinion. But like
Yeah. Yeah,
it
yeah.
really wasn't, in my
Mhm.
opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
hopefully I won't get hate for this, please. But
Well, yeah, it's how you feel about it. I feel like yeah, I mean, obviously I haven't seen it but
mm,
from what you say, it sounds like especially the scene with the grandma, it sounds quite wholesome, you
yeah,
know, and yeah, like you say, it's a step. There's so much nuance there, and I think we can be quite hard on people who are like trying coming from a good place. I mean, people can get
mm,
it terribly wrong, and
yes,
that is something that happens. I've done things that I got wrong, and people have kindly, thankfully, made me aware of
mm,
that, which I appreciate. And I've had to
yeah,
say, oh, you know, fucked up. um, and that happens. I think if
yeah,
people are genuinely just willing to learn and evolve, that is a positive thing, you know, because we
mm,
all do
mm,
though. Like, I mean, I've 20, 30, whatever years ago, I had opinions and ideas, and there were things I said. It was before the internet, so that was in a
yeah,
way not before the internet, but before like things like YouTube and people filming everything and
yeah,
it was time before smartphones, so you could say that.
mhm, mhm,
It's yeah, it's almost like yeah, we judge people. We are quick to judge people on their worst behavior, and obviously there are worst
mm,
behaviors that are definitely
of
unacceptable. So
course, of
don't get me
course.
wrong. But, there's so much again, there's so much nuance there, and, like, I know I've
Mm,
changed, and I've said things in the past and had opinions that I've since changed, and I don't say them anymore
exactly.
because I know better now, and I don't think them anymore because I know better now, and we
Mhm,
all do,
mhm.
you know?
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
but yeah,
Mm.
let people evolve. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
be happy when they're trying.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
good. It's a good symptom.
Good symptom, I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anything you'd like to add that we haven't talked about yet?
I'm not quite sure, I guess. If you can take one thing away from like this episode, it would be love yourself, love the people surrounding you if they're good to you, of course.
Mhm.
Stay away from like toxic environments if they are hurting you if you can. Love will find you in like in the best ways possible.
Mhm.
Don't discourage even if it seems like some nasty evil people were trying to win. They won't. They'll lose, I'm sure.
Yes,
I hope.
absolutely. Yes, they will lose.
And
They have
if you want,
lost. They have
yeah,
lost. That's why they're making a lot of noise. So yeah,
yes, exactly.
yeah.
And if you feel like you vibe with Chudatsu's goals of representation, you can come and follow us on our journey. Every one of you would be really helpful for our journey for future projects, including Fold, which is
Mhm,
our most recent one.
mhm.
Literally today we're filming. So
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, I look forward to seeing what that's gonna be about. Are there any future things you have in mind or anything particular that you'd like to create in your work related to, you know, gender diversity in particular or intersectionality of some description?
I guess I am very curious about researching more into Bulgarian culture when it comes to gender, because
Yeah.
like honestly there are almost like no resources about that, and I'm sure
Mm,
because we have a long, long history. I'm sure there must have been like resources at some point about gender identity and like non-binary people and trans
mm,
people when we were in the past, maybe like centuries ago. So I'm
mhm,
really curious to to research that and see what I can find, because we have some really interesting pagan rituals that, like for example, at the end of each January, we, I mean, not myself, I've not done it, but
Yeah.
like in smaller cities, they still do. They dress as what it's called as kukiri, which is basically kind of like in Halloween, you dress scary to
Yeah.
scare away evil spirits and to wish for health and healthy crops and things like that.
Hmm.
So I feel like maybe somewhere around that time where we were believing in kukiri, maybe there's something hidden in gender, because kukiri they don't have gender. But then
Uh-huh.
um, later in years, I guess the patriarchal system like arrived and did this, but like only guys would be able to dress as kukiri, women
Oh,
wouldn't be. So obviously nowadays that is changing again to
yeah.
a gender
Interesting.
equal
Yeah.
situation. But
Yeah.
mm, I'm
Hmm.
just very, very curious what might be there as a project. So
Mm.
I'm thinking of a short film that kind of represents gender through like this cookery entity that visits you
Mm.
and tries to awaken you in a way. Um,
Yeah. I love that idea.
so yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, there's so much hidden, I think, in culture, and
exactly.
I mean, if you look at colonization, like
Mm-hmm.
pre-colonization and religious stuff,
Yes, yes,
like, I
exactly.
think there's so much there that's just been erased and oppressed and,
Yes,
yeah, really, really manipulated in big ways.
exactly.
So,
So,
yeah, rediscovering that
yeah.
would be amazing, and, like, telling stories about it, and maybe it's a two-way street. Maybe resources can be translated and be brought
Mhm.
back in, and also
Yes.
deeper stuff like, culture and tradition and ritual and, all that stuff can be
Mhm.
told and translated back into English and other languages to,
Yes.
like, yeah, yeah, that would be beautiful, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, what's all you were gonna say? I went off on one there.
Oh, no, that's completely fine. It's just that that's, I guess, a project I'm considering. I've started writing a little bit of the script,
Mhm.
so you see
Yeah.
where it leads me. Um,
Mhm.
but I guess I wanted to involve also like the diaspora effect of like living kind of in between two countries, like in my case, the UK and
Mm.
Bulgaria, and how this kind of feels you a bit, like makes
Mm.
you feel a bit split.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting thing that it would take me
Mm.
some time to write, but
Yeah.
and to
Yeah, yeah,
research on these topics, because I love researching.
yeah.
It's a big part of what I do, researching. I like to things to be accurate,
Mhm.
and obviously a
Mhm.
lot of
That's good.
fantasy in between, but
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. That's beautiful. Well, I look forward to seeing how that's gonna turn out.
Thank
Yay.
you, thank you. I'll do my
Nice.
best.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing, Finn. It's been great to talk to you.
Thank you
Yeah.
for having me, and it's been really nice to converse with you. And I look forward to seeing you in person at some point
Oh, yeah.
as well.
Local. Yeah, we're local, aren't we? Yeah, I'm sure we'll
Yeah.
meet at some point. Yeah. Amazing. Thank you. You can find out more details on the website at fiftyshadesofgender.com/Finn, which is Finn, where you can also read the transcript. And you can find Finn on his websites and on social media at Chudotsi and at Awaken Kids. Links are on the episode page. Thank you for listening to the 50 Shades of Gender podcast. You can find us online at fiftyshadesofgender.com, as in FIFTY, on social media and on YouTube. Again, to support the podcast, visit the website to make a donation, join our community, find out more about our gender diversity and allyship workshops and courses, and how to contribute your gender story to the Anthology of Hope, for which we are accepting submissions now. Visit fiftyshadesofgender.com/hope for more information. We hope you will listen again. Until then, stay curious and open minded.